Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick Christmas Countdown. William Bibbiani, Alonso Duralde. We're talking about 25 of some of my favorite Christmas movies, many of which are featured in my book.
Have yourself a movie, Little Christmas.
Now available. I'm not a giant horror person, but when I put the book together, I knew that I had to devote a chapter to holiday horror. And of course, one of the movies I had to talk about was the infamous 1984 Silent Night, Deadly Night. Take a look.
'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there.
So Silent Night, Deadly Night was incredibly notorious. This movie came out when I was still in elementary school, and I remember seeing the poster that was just the chimney
with the hand and the axe.
hand and the axe, and I thought two things. One, that is the scariest image I've ever seen in my life, and two, how does that work? Because he's like stuck in there? How is he gonna get that axe down? Didn't make any sense to me, but it was a really, really creepy image. And indeed, this wasn't the first Killer Santa movie, but this is the one that got the most notice. This is the one that got the biggest release, and this is the one that got people talking about what is appropriate.
Well, yeah, Columbia Pictures had this movie for the first week. Literally, it was in theaters. I think it was a TriStar release. But then they got so much crap about it, and Siskel and Ebert literally listed the director and the writers and the producer on the show and said, shame, after all of their names. So it got dropped by them, then somebody else put it out into theaters to sort of coast on its infamy.
I think there's a whole generation of film critics, particularly horror critics, who got into this business specifically because Siskel and Ebert didn't get it. Like, you watch their reviews of any slasher movie from the 80s practically, and you're just like, dude, you're not even remotely on the right wavelength. It's insane.
And, let's not forget, Roger Ebert co-wrote Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which ends with a woman filleting a gun. So,
Fun times. But
anyway, back to Silent Night, Deadly Night.
It's a Christmas movie, but it's a horror movie, so we can talk about that stuff. Silent Night, Deadly Night is a story about a young boy who witnesses a couple of different traumas right off the bat. He has a grandfather who is catatonic, who suddenly breaks his catatonic state in order to tell his grandkid, that Santa doesn't just leave presents for good kids, he kills the naughty ones. Yeah. And then in
see Santa tonight, you better run, boy.
Oh my God, it's such a great speech. And then, worst confluence of events ever, there's a guy who happens to be dressed as Santa Claus robbing a liquor store, and he flags down their family car, and he kills the kid's parents brutally. Like, it's really terrible and traumatizes the kid. And then the kid gets raised in a very strict Catholic orphanage, which just continues to perpetuate the idea that good and evil is a binary system and there's nothing in between. Every thought you have that could be considered naughty means you're going to hell and you deserve punishment. So the kid's messed up. And what I love about this movie is that it seems like such a lazy idea for a horror movie. Guy in a Santa Claus suit killing people. It's shocking, and there you go. But there's actually...
But they at least lay out the groundwork.
They lay out the groundwork, and they lay out the groundwork in such a way that it actually is a fairly biting satire, or indeed indictment, of the negative aspects of Christmas. The idea that using Santa Claus as a means to bribe kids into being good might actually have some consequence and teach them some bad things about morality. The idea of using religion just to keep people in line and control their behavior can have a negative effect on people. Even the economic aspect of it. I mean, his parents are killed by someone who just wanted money on Christmas, and he ends up working at a toy store and becoming into that environment where Christmas is merely monotonized. Monetized. But and then he snaps. It's one too many things, and he happens to be wearing a Santa Claus suit at the time.
Well, the toy store makes him dress as Santa Claus, and
he does not want to do it. This is a bad idea. And I love the toy store when you watch this, because all the toys are like actual 80s toys, and they're not the ones that usually got like a lot of like screen time. So if you know, and if you were alive in the 80s, you watch, I had that board game. But then he goes on a horrible killing spree.
There's also a great, there's a song that plays on the radio in this movie. It's repeated at the closing credits called Santa's Watching.
Santa's watching, Santa's... I don't know why they couldn't get any of the millions of public domain Christmas songs. They decided this one.
I'm glad they created a new one because it's this very creepy Christmas song about the idea of like Santa knows if you've been good or bad. No, this is like Santa is looking at you to determine whether you've been good or bad. It gives it a creepy undercurrent.
And if you think about it, a lot of the Christmas carols we currently have about Santa Claus really just reaffirm those basic things, but we take them for granted. When you listen to the new version, it's just like, it's creepy. I feel like this movie is actually very intelligently thought out, even though, once he actually starts killing people, it's ridiculous. People getting beheaded while sledding, and that's just a treat in and of itself.
Antlers, I believe, or...
I think Linnea Quigley actually gets impaled on antlers. It's a hell of a scene. But
this is at the end of the day a slasher movie. But I think given the spate of sort of holiday-related slasher movies we got after Halloween,
this is one of the better ones.
I like it. I think they do at least figure out a way to sort of incorporate ideas about Christmas into this.
That's what I'm going is there's a lot of the slasher movies from the 80s that are absolutely brilliant, or a lot of them that are simply entertaining, but I always tend to gravitate towards the ones that have a little something on their mind. Like, hey, let's actually talk about something. And Silent Night, Deadly Night didn't resist the urge to actually say something about Christmas. It's something cynical about Christmas, but I think it's a valuable part of the Christmas conversation is, the negativity that can come from the season and what has happened to it in the culture. I will say this, I think it's a damn shame that the movie is pretty badly shot. It's really kind of bland looking, and it's a shame when you look at, even if you ever get a chance to see a really cleaned up version of the original Friday the 13th, it's a good looking movie, but this is just pretty cheap. But
although
I think it gets by on charm.
It is worth noting there is a new Blu-ray of Silent Night, Deadly Night that Scream Factory is putting out this year. Maybe it'll look better. I don't know.
It also has a legacy of very weird sequels.
Yes.
Weird sequels. Everyone knows the second one because it has that great line, Garbage Day. But the second movie is I think it's 2/3 of it is clips from the first movie. It's one of the laziest sequels I've ever seen. But then there's weird ones about psychic guys with their brain exposed and weird Christmas cults. And then the fifth one has Mickey Rooney in it. And Mickey Rooney was one of the celebrities who went on the record saying
that the first one was disgusting.
Was an abomination. How dare you do that to Christmas? And then he was in the fifth one.
Yeah.
So
didn't Monty Hellman direct the fifth one?
Monty Hellman directed I think he directed the third one. Yeah. And what's interesting is that he directed the third one as part of a deal to help get Reservoir Dogs financed.
Oh,
yeah, so we owe Reservoir Dogs, and indeed the career of Quentin Tarantino
to the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise.
Anyway, the second one is kind of only a novelty, but the other ones are kind of neat. I think 3 and 4 are so bizarre they might even be worth watching for you. But the first one is just a rock solid slasher in a lot of ways, and I think it kind of disappeared for a while. I think people kind of assumed it was terrible because everyone decried it. And then around the early 2000s, it started screening more often, and people started realizing this movie is quite good.
And then they remade it, right?
They did. They remade it as a movie called Silent Night, which... It's got the kills, if that's what you want out of a slasher movie, is a whole bunch of cool kills. It's got that. I think it has a little less on its mind than the original. I think that was kind of a shame. But it's got a good cast. Malcolm McDowell's in it. And it's not bad. It's not my favorite of the franchise by any stretch.
Again, this is not my genre. I haven't taken nearly as deep a dive as you have over the years. And of the films that I was watching for this book, of the period of the early 70s to the mid 80s, this is no Black Christmas.
No.
But if you like slasher movies and you like Christmas horror, then this is one you should definitely check out.
Look, when you think about combining the horror genre and the Christmas genre, you've got an inherent sort of contrast of the beautiful, the sweet, the innocent, the religious, and the deeply violent, horrible, sacrilegious even.
Right.
And
this is also no Christmas Evil.
We'll talk about that.
Okay,
but I will say this. I think that contrast is what we come for. And some movies take it very seriously and come up with something incredibly dark. Some movies handle it in a more light way, and you come up with something very silly, Santa's Sleigh, starring Goldberg as evil Santa, which I actually think is funnier than most people give it credit for. But this is a good one. It's right in the middle. It's entertaining, but it has stuff on its mind. And if you've only ever seen the poster, it's worth checking out. Absolutely.
Yeah, all I knew about this movie was the controversy of the time of its release, and I think it actually holds up as a real movie. It's not just this sort of sort of footnote in censorship history or whatever.
No, it's a good slasher. I'm just going to throw it out there. I know some people think there's no such thing, but it is.
Here's something to look for if you like to catch this sort of thing in a low-budget movie. There's only one Santa suit in the entire film because they've all got those jingle bells around the cuffs.
I never noticed
So
that.
the guy who kills the parents at the beginning of the movie and then the suit he puts on later, same one.
Weird.
So there you go.
I never noticed that before. Thank you for that. Awesome.
My pleasure. All right, so thank you guys for watching. We're here every day until Christmas with more holiday favorites, so we hope you'll be back.